Hi, I'm super excited. Today we do another interview, again from Europe. So cool. That's going to be Adam from England, and we'll see how he grows his plants on his windowsill. So come here. First, thank you for showing us your plants at home. Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, my name's Adam.
Hi, Adam. So where do you come from? England, Manchester?
I'm here in the northwest of England. It's in the greater borough of Manchester, and for those that follow football or soccer, depending on where you come from, it's kind of like halfway in between Liverpool and Manchester itself.
Okay.
But I'm not from the northwest. I'm from Essex, which is a county just outside of London.
Okay. So how long have you been growing carnivorous plants or Nepenthes?
Carnivorous plants since I was 19 and did the usual trick of, buying a Venus flytrap and killing it, and then buying another one and then killing that, and then buying another one and killing that. And after the fourth one, you work it out.
Okay.
But Nepenthes just 4 years, really.
Okay. And you have a few species that we will see for sure.
Well, everything's a hybrid. Everything's a hybrid. I've got no species, as it were, on their own. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's also the easiest one. So that's the one everybody should focus on, and then once it's mastered, then you can try pickier species. But let's talk about the weather outside. You sent me the graphic, so it's never really hot or really cold. I mean, the weather.
The mins and max, it's never gets too cold, but then obviously on certain days it can get very warm and it can get very cold. But the temperature so say like last summer when we had our hottest days, the temperature in the window itself could easily be, over 35.
Oh, okay.
But that's pretty rare.
Okay.
But we do get quite good sort of drops in temperature over a night, but not in the height of summer. I don't tend to have my heating on very much. And I think they do appreciate that drop in temperature, which we don't get at the height of summer.
So, for example...
so everything I have is a Highland, apart from one lowland hybrid that's fairly new. That seems to be okay.
Okay. So, yeah, if you can start showing us your plant, I will ask you a question on the go.
So that's my most recent plant that I got in March, and it's a Mojito. And it has kind of fairly mixed parentage. There's not a lot on the internet about it.
Very nice. Good size. I mean, a lot of picture. Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
5.
a lot of them are going over, but you can sort of see maybe the ones developing. When you get a plant, especially if you're a beginner, and all the pictures and leaves start wilting and they go black and the bits fall off. And I think you panic, but I think you just have to realize that you've, taken an alien from where it was living and you put it in a new space, and it will take time for it to adapt.
Yeah, sure.
And I think all plants, obviously some are really picky, but, in the end, eventually will bounce back somehow.
Oh, by the way, this window, what is it facing?
So I've got a bay-fronted window. So this particular window faces northeast, but the main window faces directly east.
Okay.
I don't know if you could see a lamp post just out there, and that faces directly east.
Okay.
And then on the right-hand side of the bay window, that's the one that faces southeast. So that gets the most window, but I get a hell of a lot of indirect light. But I also have, supplemental lighting. And I do have a little space up there that I am going to put the light up, but I haven't got around to doing it.
Okay.
Because when you have a little setup like this, it's kind of very difficult because you have to take everything off to put something
Yeah.
up. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the most recent plant.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go on next, and this is Ventracosa by Maxima.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a plant that was delivered when I first moved into this flat. And, you know, you get some real whoppers. You know, there's a couple there that, you know, going over, you can sort of see the brownness and stuff. And it's obviously clearly now started to vine. And I don't really have the room to allow them to vine.
Oh.
So am I going to let it vine or am I not going to let it vine?
You can
But
let it vine at some point and then do
can you
cuttings.
see the basil there? Okay. This reliably puts on basils whenever it starts vining. And because I don't have room for a vining plant, really, I might try and get it to go that way, but we shall see. I usually take cuttings from the top, pop them on, and then just cut that right back. You know, you did the thing with the basil cuttings recently?
Yes, yes.
If you take the basil cutting off, it will take it a long time to mature, whereas if you leave it on the root system, within, I don't know, 6 months, that won't be quite as big as the plant I've got there, but you know, will be pretty close. Just there, and I know we're having technical issues. Can you see the daughter plant from that? So that would have been cuttings I would have taken from the stem of this one. I call it Vmax just because it's Ventracosa by Maxima and it's not an official title or anything, but you know.
I like it.
So that would have been taken December of last year. No, the year before, actually. Tell a lie.
What's the small one on the left?
Right, so that's what I call Bob. And the only reason I call it Bob is because this reminds me, it's Brigiana by Remy.
Yes.
And I paid a little bit too much for it for my liking, but it's a slowy, but it does kind of it produces a picture every single leaf.
Very
As
nice.
you can see from some of these ones here. I think as the plant gets further away from the compost and further away from the, you know, the source of humidity, you know, you tend to get fails, but you know, it's not quite a science. It's kind of, I don't know. It's very strange. Some plants seem to deal better with my conditions. And
nice. And you run an humidifier?
Yeah, it's just one of those USB things, and it's only ever on when my lights are on, and my lights are on for 12 hours from December up to 13 hours to June, and I change them on the 28th and the 14th. Okay. And I just like to change it by 10 minutes just to have some sort of, I don't know,
that's
change.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to
And also I have some other plants that are different because, you know, we're talking very, very equatorial and where you don't get big changes in the, you know, the length of day. Whereas here in the UK, your shortest day is 7.5 hours, whereas your longest day is like, you know, 17 hours. So you know what I mean? There's quite a big, we're very temperate here. Yeah. So we're great for growing, you know, temperate carnivorous plants outside. Whereas with the tropicals, but you know, obviously I can't stop the sun from shining, but you know. In Manchester, they try very hard. Okay, so if we go down to here, this one, here's my lowland, and that's not really the reason why I've got it lower, but not sure if you got that. It's Hucarena, and that's relatively new. Okay. But it came in a very sort of long pot, and I was surprised by how big its roots were. I actually cut the pot up the side, and the roots were right to the bottom. And it was in a kind of unusual sort of compost mix. It was what the supplier described as German peat. So it's not like regular peat. It's quite coarse and lumpy. And I'm trying to go against using peat, but I was a little bit worried about it. And again, I paid too much money than I should have paid for it. So I wanted to try and put it into some sort of similar compost. It's actually two plants in the same pot, but there was also quite a lot of basils that I tried to pot on. And I made a bit of a mistake and I cut right through one of the plants. Okay. And but it seems to be recuperating. But that's the most recent picture there. And that's kind of, it's away from the window itself, so it actually gets a lot less light. And I would assume lowlanders get less light. I don't know.
It's also probably get less cold from outside because I'm surprised lowland on the windowsill in UK feels tricky.
Well, I would say, well, because it's the first one I've ever had, considering I repotted it.
Yeah.
So that picture there that you can sort of see, that's entirely developed since I got it.
Okay, perfect.
Like if you get a new plant and the pictures that it arrive with collapse and go a funny colour and die off, don't worry so much about that. It's the ones that are produced new are the ones you really should be looking at. Well, as far as I think anyway. Okay, so this is Nepenthes Sam, which is Ventracosa bitalangensis, I think.
Okay.
Now, this one has produced lots of material. I got it for my birthday 2 years ago. And again, it was much, much bigger. And all the traps went brown and just sort of fell off very, very quickly. But it rallied within about 3 months and just, you know, again started vining. And I took a lot of material off. There's 2 daughter plants there. I'm not quite sure which way round. On the right-hand side, that's a stem cutting, and on the left, that's basils. But there's also another one there at the front that I'm trying a bit further away from the window, just to sort of try different conditions and stuff. But like I say, that was a birthday present to myself. So, but yeah, it does really well because of these 2 plants, which sort of take the main sort of position, the Vmax and the Sam. The one on the left gets the most sun in spring and winter, but then the Sam on the right gets the most in the summer because the sun sort of rises in sort of that direction at the height of summer, but much more through that window in sort of spring and winter. Okay. When the light's much lower and of lower intensity. And I also have this big tree outside, which you may or may not be able to see. It's a lime tree, not a citrus lime, but it's a very common broadleaf tree. And it's actually protected. And I didn't used to like it, and it's just coming into leaf now. But it does provide shade from the heat of the sun. Okay. And the light and, you know, everything else. Which I think now that I've been growing the Nepenthes for 4 years, I've kind of noticed that it helps me out rather than hinders me. Okay. All right. So this one here is a Rebecca Soper. Okay. And this is a Matt Soper hybrid. I think it's possibly named after his daughter, maybe his wife. I'm not too sure. But again, that had a basil. That was a very small plant when I got it. And you know, you did the thing about wax on the pictures. Yes. That's the sunniest window and gets the most intense light at about sort of midday. And I don't know if you can see that.
So this one was waxy.
Oh yeah, very, very much so. I know from my basic botany that, you know, obviously the upper part of a leaf is waxy, but it's quite of note that you mentioned it, and I never really thought about it. That, you know, that's the window of where the sun is at its strongest, so maybe producing. But you know, like the upper side of a leaf, you can understand that, you know, that's the bit with the wax on it. But when you've got a really highly modified leaf, you think, well, what's the top, what's the bottom?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then we go on to this fella here, which is what you call a Brigiana, yeah? Yes. Low-eye Ventracosa? Yeah. And again, this came as a very small plant. It was part of a deal with some other stuff. And this is the one that one of the parents is the one where rodents poop into it. Oh yeah, exactly. And we mentioned, like, if you had a pet hamster or something, could you pop the poo in? So again, that's because it's very intense, the sunlight there, and the humidifier that you saw, that doesn't provide any humidity for these 2 plants. Which kind of goes to show that they can sort of stand extremes. And the humidifier, for me, it doesn't make a big difference. And I think if I got a better one, it might be slightly better. But I don't want to turn my front room into a forest. It puts on about 10%. So like away from the window at the minute, I'm getting 55% relative humidity. And then quite near to the humidifier, I'm getting 66%. But then when it gets dark outside, that difference can be like up to 20%. You know what I mean? In a greenhouse, it's very easy to control, you know, and if money's no limit, then, you know, you can do whatever you like, really. Yeah, but with the scene, you have to adapt and... Well, it's the plant that has to adapt. Yeah. Okay, so from the Rebecca Soper, there was a basil that I've taken off, and that's recently come out of a propagator. Okay. So that's now sort of, you know, just going off. And like I say, that's another Sam. And this is one of my earliest plants. This is a Bloody Mary, which is Ampullaria and Ventracosa. And these plants are incredibly prolific in terms of basils and sort of growth rate. But I've had a little bit of a stalling of pictures at the minute, and I'm still not quite sure exactly what that's about. But
maybe the heat. Maybe in summer it will come back stronger. For me, I have Nepenthes Gaia that is doing great from the second half of spring to the first half of fall. But as soon as it gets too cold, it will start having deformed picture, if it picture, I mean. So I know Gaia, he prefer it warmer.
right down the bottom here, I moved these guys from the kitchen.
So what's that?
Okay, these are 4 basils that all came from the Bloody Mary.
Okay, nice.
And these are sort of more or less, if I ever take a cutting basil or stem, I put them in these little modules just to save costs on the materials. I mean, it's not the perlite or the orchid bark, it's the sphagnum that, you know, the long fibre sphagnum that costs a lot. And these work out really great. And these are kind of tiny little things, you know, probably 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch.
So that's not
squares.
inside sphagnum?
Oh, that's sphagnum, perlite, and pine bark. And you know, you can tell, you know, when it's putting on growth and everything. And then there's also a little hole at the bottom of the modules, and you can see the roots coming out the bottom, and then you know you're all right to pot up. So, and then here on the left, I'll just move that. Those are basils that came off the Heuchera that I got, you know, just at the back end of last year. So that still needs a bit more sort of habituation, and the 2 things behind it are just Cephalotus rhizome cuttings that everybody calls root cuttings, but are actually rhizome. Okay, so I should pop that back on. I have a bit of a fill in there. That's Epiphylum oxypetalatum. It's a night blooming Epiphylum, forest cactus. So it's an epiphyte as well, and I think it's from Central America. So it kind of sort of fits in with the whole what I've got on this shelf. So I've got the Heliamphora and some Pinguiculars. Okay. And they obviously sort of tie into that sort of 12-hour to 13-hour thing. So I've got a Pinguiculatina there and a Pinguicula agnata. And then here is my pride and joy. Oh, yeah. And it's, okay, this is like a light fitting come plant thing that I got from IKEA, which they no longer sell. It's called a bitter gurkha. And it still has the original, I think it's a 12-watt light bulb. Okay. And the guy I bought this plant from, a guy called Nigel Hewitt Cooper, I think I paid £23 for it, more or less 2 years. And there was 4 pictures on it, probably the size of that one. Okay. And it's gone completely mental. And then there was a bit on it that just like fell off. And I wrapped it up in sphagnum, put it in a pot with some more sphagnum. And then within about 3 months, it flowered. Oh, and then I sold it on eBay for more than the original plant cost me, including the postage. Cool. So what Heliamphora is it? This is Heterodoxa. Okay. And it's, I don't know, 3 inches from the bowl. Okay. But you can't give this plant too much light. Okay. And the humidity is pretty much the same, like, you know, I sort of balance the sort of the humidity meter sort of here, and it floats between 40 and 60. But it just, again, it didn't like it when it first got here because it's grown by an experienced grower that's got medals at Chelsea. But, you know, it's just it was in 50 peak, 50 perlite. It sits in water and it's in one of those hanging pots because it was the only thing that was kind of low enough. And then when it sort of outgrew the pot, I put it into the, you know, like I say, the hanging pot. And I use 50% washed coir and perlite, and it, you know, it's growing into it. I have ordered a pot that's going to be a lot wider, but just as high. But it took me a long time to find one that's like the right price. Okay. But that just, I don't know.
That's fantastic.
Possibly the success story.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic plant.
So then I've got a couple of tissue cultured. These are Newton's Heterodoxes, and they're tissue cultured.
Did you unflask them, or did you?
No, they were
They
sent,
come
but
from.
you can tell
Okay.
that just the way they clump, they just don't do the whole sort of. The rhizomes are just so sort of undifferentiated.
Okay.
But I managed to divide one, and this is in 50% perlite, 50% long fiber sphagnum moss, and then some live moss on top, and that just sits on a bit of gravel.
Mm-hmm.
And I just let the water drain through.
Okay. And
like I say, they grump at first, but from what I understand from talking to Nigel, that Heterodox, you will find them on the top of the tapuis, but you will also get them at lower stations. They're much more adaptable. But you can pay a lot of money for a Nepenthes, but you can pay a lot of money for a Helianthera as well. And then a tiny little Pinguicula cyclosector and a Wessa, just to because everybody's got a rifle. So apart from that, it's just I've got a lot of Cephalotus, which I've been growing for 20 odd years. Nice. And there's my original mother plant that, again, I got from Matt Soper, 2009, and that's in an 18-centimeter pot. Wow! And I just round the edge, I take like crown divisions. I'm trying not to sort of disturb it too much. And, they are all of her progeny. There's a couple of rhizome cuttings. That's a rhizome cutting as well. That's a crown division. So you have plenty. For people in the UK, these will be available on eBay this year when they're putting on growth now, but they haven't sort of shown their tracks and whatnot. Okay, so any questions from you, sir? I already understood that you use most likely long fiber and perlite, right? Yeah. Do you use some? Here's some I got prepared, just the regular sort of stuff for orchids, and more or less a third of that. Okay. A third pine bark, just like regular stuff that you get for potting orchids in. Mm-hmm. And then perlite, but I didn't get perlite out because I'm assuming everybody knows what perlite looks like. And do you use fertilizer? Good question. A lot of stuff you guys in the States and North America, talk about is a thing called Maxi. Yeah, but we don't have that in Canada, so it's orchid fert for me. But yeah. Okay, well, I use this stuff, and I pinch it from my sister, who grows Phalaenopsis orchids. And it's called Orchid Focus, and it's a really low strength. Okay. Okay. The same. Yeah. And there's no urea in it, and if you use it at the recommended dilution in pure water, because I've got a reverse osmosis unit with a DI cartridge on the end, so I get it out of 0. And if you make it up in its natural dilution, it kind of comes to somewhere between 140 and 150, depending on how good you are at doing your syringing. And I tend to spray the small plants, like, say the cuttings and whatnot, because obviously you can't put anything into the traps themselves. Mm-hmm. But once they get to a certain point, I did buy some black crickets, which was quite fun. And they're like about £2.50. But I'm thinking next time I'm going to freeze them, put them in the bag, put them in the freezer, and just defrost them and just pop them in. Quick question. So you use some additional grow light? What are they? Yeah, these are Sansi 10-watt bulbs. Oh, 10 watts. So I've got 2 there and 1 there. But I originally had the 15 watts, and especially the Ventracosa Maxima, that went so red. Yeah. And I switched to a 10. But there's an app on Android called PPFD Meter. Okay. And it works very, very well. And I mean, you can even you can do like lumens, lux, foot candles and that, but you can also do like photosynthetic photon flux density, which we won't go into now, but it's quite a good app, and you can sort of get relative measurements of what's your brightest spots in your window and what's your least bright. And I know it's very good for Android, but I'm really not too sure for iOS.
But yeah, even myself, for the Sunsi 36 watts, I still use them, obviously, but they are higher now. They were, because I raised the pots, they were too high. It was too close, too red.
I mean, that's why I have these things on like hooks, and they're like attached to the wall, because I rent my flat with those 3M command things.
Yeah.
Always make sure that the weight of the plant is about half of the weight of the hook, or sometimes they fall off. With the lights, yeah. So I dropped them down to 10 watts and just sold all the 15 watts on, apart from one, on eBay. But even then, I used like a heat-proof mesh to reduce the light, because I just get too much. I think they just get too much light.
Okay.
I really don't think the light's the problem for me. The problem for me is humidity. Okay. But, you know, unless I buy myself an industrial fogger, I'm not quite sure, you know, what I can do.
You have great Helianthora, definitely. I may try to copy you. I have only a minor for now, but yours is fantastic. So,
but you know those Osmocote tablets? Because we used to get them here. I've still got a few, and every time an adult pitcher opens, I just put one in it, and leave it. So I don't fertilize the soil. Sorry, the medium compost. But obviously, there's a slit and a hole, so when you fill the traps, a little bit does come out. But you know, if I ever measured TDS in the water that it sits in, you know, it's never above about 30, and you know, everybody's happy with that. But you know, I don't know. It's maybe I should have a YouTube site saying, you know, sort of Windowsill Helianthora.
That would be great.
We'll never have enough money. And I've also noticed actually that not one of my Nepenthes is actually on a windowsill. It's in the window or on a shelf that I've made inside the window. Whereas all my Cephalotus are, but you know, they're kind of like in between being temperate and being tropical, subtropical, I suppose. But again, they're so much more easier to grow. You don't have to stick things in fish tanks. You really don't.
Yeah. So what would be your advice if somebody want to try on Nepenthes on Windowsill or Helianthora?
Well, from my evidence, if you live in the northwest of England, or you know, anywhere in the UK, I suppose, or with similar temperatures, again, the Helianthora likes drops in temperatures, but it needs lots of light. Obviously, the water thing, but that's like the same for any carnivorous plant. You know, pure water. You know, it's a good starting point. But yeah, definitely, just give it a try. Just try it. But yeah, the Helianthora, I would go, well, definitely you buy a plant from a reputable supplier. When you first get it, put it in a bag. After a week, cut the corners off. You know, make your corners bigger and bigger and bigger, and just be bold and stick it out. But yeah, with the Helianthora, definitely light.
Thank you for the tips. So thanks again for sharing all your tips and your plans with us. And have a great day.
You too, sir. Au revoir.
Au revoir. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. It was a pleasure to talk about carnivorous plants with another plant geek. It's always a pleasure to discuss with other hobbyists. If you want to show me how you grow your Nepenthes on your windowsill, please contact me, leave a contact in the comment or shoot me a message on Facebook. And yeah, until next time, happy growing.